Hey, up next on The Ted Show.
How can you help your child have better self-esteem? We all worry about that. Dr. Andy's here with some tips you can use today.
Luann?
You know, perhaps one of the most important things that we can teach our kids is how to be confident and how they can love themselves. And we have advice today from Dr. Andy Weiner. She's written a new book called More Than Saying I Love You, 4 Powerful Steps That Help Children Love Themselves. Please welcome Dr. Andy Weiner.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. This is really an important topic. And, you know, I was very interested in your advice about how we praise our children. One of the first things you say is create internal appreciation. What do you mean?
Well, in my book, I go about the 4 different steps. And the first thing about creating internal appreciation is basically the way that we perceive, you know, we perceive ourselves, our talents, our strengths, or whatever, but it's based on our own internal basis. It's not dependent upon anybody else. And the way that we do that, one of the ways you can do that is the way we praise our children.
Now, you say we shouldn't say, I'm so... I don't know, it's okay to say, I'm so proud of you, but you say you should use the word you more.
Okay.
You must feel great about that.
That's correct. And the reason for that is when we use what I call the you or than you statement, what we're doing is that we are, like when we say, you know, you should be so proud of yourself. You got that A in that spelling test. You know, you worked really hard for that. What we're doing is we are making them appreciate their own talents, their own skills, not based upon, you know, somebody else's, which is external validation of that.
So you're saying, because a lot of kids when they grow up, they'll say this, well, I was trying to please you.
Absolutely.
And they start valuing only what you value, and you're saying that's not healthy. That's not good.
Well, you know, it's important, you know, again, it's important, you know, to give praise, of course, but to make it directed and to direct it towards them. We want them to feel confident to be able to know, look, I'm not doing this, I'm doing this for me.
Pleasing themselves is the most important.
Absolutely, and that's what creates, you see, children are born loving. They really don't know any different. So what we need to do is remind them about this. And this is one of the ways that we can do that.
You have great tips in here about how to do that. You also say instill empathetic acceptance. What is that?
Okay, empathetic acceptance is a term I use that basically we want children to learn how to accept their strengths, their weaknesses, everything. And it goes actually beyond even self-esteem. You know, self-esteem is a term that we've bantered around for many, many years. And that's, you know, the way we value ourselves. But often we look at how we, our strengths, more or less. But when we use empathetic acceptance, we're looking at also our weaknesses. And by doing that, when you do that with your child, so you want them to love as much as their hair that they love, but also their big feet that they find that, you know, I'm not crazy about. We want them to be lovable for all those aspects. Because you know what? We're all parts of a puzzle, and all those little pieces fit together to make a whole.
So look at the good, the bad, the ugly, accept it all.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
It says teach children how to turn around negative, unloving thoughts. And we all, as adults, we have that. We think, oh, I really messed that up, or I was so awful in this, and you dwell on that.
Well, you know, Luann, you'd be surprised how many thoughts we manufacture. I think it's over 60,000 thoughts a day.
And many are not true.
Many are not true because many of them are negative thoughts. And so what we want to do, and that's, by the way, the negative thoughts are the ones that cause us pain and stress. So we want to teach children to question those thoughts when we catch them. And they're the ones that are critical, they're the ones that are judgmental.
So if a child comes home and says, what? They say I'm mean or horrible or selfish or ugly.
Okay.
You sit down and you say, really?
And you say, really? Is that thought really true? And then you say, if so, how do you know for sure? I'm like, how do I know for sure? And that's a clear, like, well, I'm not sure. If so, give me evidence. And then, the most important thing is, how can you give me a truer thought about that? And so when you're able to replace those truer thoughts with what we call those negative, what I call automatic, you know, negative thoughts, that's what we do, and that's loving to yourself.
Well, there are great tips about how you go through this and practice this with your child. And the last one is practice inward loving kindness.
Right. As I mentioned before, we're all born loving, and so we need to reinforce that love. So what that means is that we do things that are going to, remember to value ourselves. So maybe it's not, believing those untrue thoughts. Maybe it's being in meaningful friendships. And maybe it's doing things for your body and for your mind, and to practice that every day.
Dr. Andi Weiner, this is great advice, and
Thank you.
Many more tips on how to make sure your child is loving themselves. Thank you so much for being here. More than saying I love you. 4 powerful steps that help children love themselves.